Hey guys, and welcome to this series on FastAPI in Python. In today's video, we're going to get started by building a project completely from scratch. I'm going to be using Poetry for my dependency management. We're also going to be setting up Uvicorn as a nice simple web server just to get this app up and running. So by the end of this video, we're going to have a simple FastAPI program built. We're going to be adding a get and a post endpoint, and we'll just kind of get the whole project set up so it's ready to go for future videos. I'll be doing this completely from scratch, so I've got a folder with nothing in it at all. So you're going to watch me doing the virtual environment creation, setting up Poetry, setting up FastAPI, and then setting up Uvicorn as well. We'll make sure that the code is properly linted using the Ruff linter and the VS Code extension. So first thing we got to do is set up a simple virtual environment. We're then going to be installing Poetry into this environment, and then Poetry can handle our FastAPI and Uvicorn dependencies. I can now go ahead and activate this virtual environment. I should see my terminal change to reflect this. Notice here I did venv. That's because in the previous command I asked for a virtual environment called venv. So if you've called this something else, just replace this with whatever you've called your environment. And just something to note as well, I am working on a Mac. It will be a bit different on a Windows machine. Okay, there we go. I can see I'm now inside my virtual environment. I've now got venv here. If I can clear the screen and check I've got a fresh environment, I run pip list. I should only see pip, setup tools, and wheel. So I've now got a nice, simple, fresh environment that's ready to go. So what I want to do, rather than using pip to manage my dependencies, I quite fancy the tool Poetry. Poetry is a really nice, simple dependency manager. Using things like setup tools and setup.py is a bit old school these days. Poetry is a really nice, simple, modern way to do it. So I can simply install Poetry into my environment, and that's going to be the last pip installing that we're going to be doing today. So let's just run pip list again, check we have Poetry. Yeah, there we go, there's Poetry. And if you've not used Poetry before, Poetry is effectively a really nice, simple dependency manager. It can do a whole lot more than just manage dependencies, but it's a nice way, especially if you're sharing projects. People can just take the Poetry file and they can install all the dependencies from this given Poetry file. One neat thing it can do is give you like a boilerplate project. So if I do Poetry new, let's just call this my app, hit run, and we should see some stuff appear here now. Here we go, my app. It's given me a folder called my application, which has a blank init.py. I've got a folder for my tests, which will be done in a later video. You can see it's also been given a blank init.py to make these act as packages. I've got a pyprojects.toml, which is giving me some nice simple stuff here. So I've just got some basic information about the app here, which you can go ahead and change. So for example, you can go ahead and give us a description. So something like this. Of course, yours might be a bit nicer than that. We've got the location of a README file. So later on, if you have some instructions, those could quite happily live inside my README file, which is good. And so far, I've just got one dependency, Python. This here will ship as standard, so don't worry too much about this at the moment. What we need to do now is install our dependencies for FastAPI. I just want to make sure I'm in the right place. I want to cd into my app, hit ls, and I can see my pyprojects.toml. So for this bit, you need to make sure you're in the same location as your toml file, and we're now going to ask Poetry to install said dependencies. So rather than doing pip install, we now do Poetry add. So I can go ahead and say Poetry add FastAPI. By default, this will go to the latest version, and that's okay, but you can actually go ahead and change this if you want to go to a specific version. But in this case here, the latest version is absolutely fine. I also want to install Uvicorn, and this is going to be our web server, which we're going to use to run our FastAPI application. So we can simply say Poetry add Uvicorn like this, and we should see the same thing happen now. So at the moment, we're in a good place. We've got a folder containing some really simple code. We've got a pyproject.toml file, and this has all of our dependencies. We've got a README, which is currently blank, but this can be done in a later video. So what I propose we do now is head into my app. So just see where I am. Let's go into my app here. And I now want to go ahead and make a new file. So we can do touch main.py. I've now got a main.py file here. And let's do a simple docstring. Now our file is ready, we can go ahead and get some imports done. and here is my FastAPI. Just something to note as well, I do have Ruff up and running here. So if you're using VS Code, simply go to extensions, type in Ruff and get this installed. It's just a really nice, simple way to highlight any issues. Of course, this is kicking off here because I haven't used FastAPI yet, whereas later on when I do use it, it's going to be happy. So we want to say app is equal to FastAPI. So notice how that's gone because I've now just gone ahead and used it. And all this is doing is making a really simple app. Now this can actually take, if I actually open these up here, this can take a ton of things here. So we can go ahead and actually do that. So we can say, let's do my FastAPI. We'll go ahead and give this a simple description and you'll see why later on. So you can say, this is my cool API. Sorry, that is the least cool sentence you've probably ever heard, but yeah, you get the point. Let's make this look at least so it's in line. There we go. All looks good. So at the moment, we have an app defined, and generally the way we do things in FastAPI is we define individual routes. So for example, once the app is running, you could go to the running address, you could go to something like localhost / some route. So if we had a route which was like hello, we have to define these individual routes. So if you had an app which had 3 routes, I don't know, something like this. So say if this did a job, and so did these 2 here, if these all did separate jobs, these would be 3 individual routes inside our application. So, very customary to do a hello world one first. We can go ahead and define a hello world route. So all we've got to do is use a decorator. This is going to be app, so make sure this is the same as this here. So we're going to do app.get, and let's just do hello world like this. And because this is a decorator, this is going to decorate some function. So underneath we can say def hello like this. And let's do in dictionary form, let's do return message hello world. Like that. That looks good. So that's a really simple route, which is clean, easy, and good to go. So our app now has a really simple route, and this is a get route. So just after this, we are going to make a post one as well. And what we need to now do is use Uvicorn to basically say, here's an app, go ahead and serve it. So if I quickly look inside my TOML file, we can see we have Uvicorn already installed, which is good. And the way we're going to do this, now this can be done in so many different ways, is Uvicorn is now going to come along and invoke the app. So all we've got to do now, make sure you're in the same place as your main.py here. You can simply do Uvicorn main, and then do this little set of colon here. And then wherever your app is called, in this case mine's just called app, do this. Now this will serve it under the default settings. So if you hit run now, or hit enter, I should say, we can see by default it's chosen localhost here. However, you can also choose to run it under a different port. So if we do Control-C here, let's clear that screen up and do this again. If we do say port, I don't know, 5050, there we go. We can see the app is now being served on port 5050. So what I suggest you do in this case is try curling your application. So if I open a new window here, and I can do curl, basically just pinch this address. So take this here. Let's put that in there. So curl this. So if I curl the app with nothing after it, okay, I get detail not found. That's because a root of just this here doesn't exist inside the app. And if I go back to here, we can see that our app has actually given a 404 for this. However, we do have a hello world route, and this route is returning this. So if we come back to our terminal, let's clear this up again, shall we? And say, okay, now go and curl the same address, but go to the hello world location at that address. And there we go, message hello world. So we can see our API has accepted a request here, and it said, okay, go ahead and return this. And if we go back here, we can see it's given a 200. 200 is basically HTTP speak for cool, okay, all good. So our app is happy with this, and what is cool, look at how it's given us these kind of default color logs as well. So anything like 404 or 400 is going to be in red. These 200s are okay, they're all good. So right now our app is correctly serving at a given route. So what I want to try just for a second is, let me clear this, and let's just quickly take this off here. But what I will do to make a bit of space is just get rid of this. And if we do in the terminal, I do curl x post. So we're now going to try and send a post request. Detail, method not allowed. Let's head back to our application. We've now been given a 405. So if you're not familiar with what this kind of means in terms of gets and posts, posts are normally what you do when you say, and you submit like a username password into like a login form. We're posting information into a server. And because our FastAPI, in this case, we've said this route is purely for get. So this would be like a get is what you might do in like a simple web page. You go on, we're getting stuff from the server. We're not posting anything back. In this case, this is a simple get. So when we try and do a post request to a get endpoint, we get detail method not allowed. However, let's now copy this and let's do hello world dash post. And check this out, this little hello here, it's kicked off because we've reused it. Let's be basic, shall we? We can call this hello goodbye. And let's do change get to be post. And let's do I have been posted to. Okay, we can clear this. We do have to restart the app. So if we do Control C here and kick this app off again. There we go, looks good. Okay, we're serving on 50/50 still. And let's try now posting to this. Yeah, not allowed, that's fine. However, I do have this one, which is hello world dash post. Message I have been posted to. So now we have an app which can accept a get request and accept a post request as well. Of course, these aren't the only two things you can do, but just for a really simple first pass the post look at FastAPI, this is effectively all it is. We define an app, in this case just called app. We then use decorators for our get endpoints, our post endpoints. These functions can then exist. These functions can then do stuff. In this case, they're literally just returning some JSON. But, we could have some processing app in the background. Once this app is more complex, we can have actions going on here, which do some computation and then return information back. That's generally how this is going to work. And in the industry, this is what you're going to see as well. You might have some front end written in JavaScript or React. That front end is then going to make requests to an API, such as this one, for example. And this API could quite easily sit in between a front end and a database, and it's effectively being the go-between between the front end, what the customer sees, and your back-end database, whatever that might look like. There's a couple more things I want to show before wrapping up our introductory session. The first one is just more for an ease of life thing, if I'm honest. Now, if I bring back this here, recall that we could serve the application. However, any changes in here meant that I had to stop the app and restart it again. However, what we can do is just pass in this -- reload flag. We can run this again and check this out. We'll watch for changes in these directories. You can go one step further and give it like a -- reload dir and tell it to watch a specific directory. But in this case, just doing reload here, because I'm in this directory, you can see it's looking for changes here. So if, say for example, I did, I don't know, let's do this here. Yay. As soon as I hit save, check this out, there we go. Detected changes in main.py, reloading. So without you having to do anything, it's basically said, something's changed, go ahead and reserve the app, which is kind of cool. Just because I've shown you that reload argument as well, this is the official documentation for Uvicorn, not FastAPI. There's an absolute shed load of things you can pass in. So these are, arguably some of these are for more of a production setting, but port, we've just seen that. For reload, yeah, we've seen that as well. There's the reload directory. And the way the documentation does it, it's all super nice, really clear. So kind of in incremental videos, I'm going to be introducing more and more of these. So things like logging are really important. If you need to use things like HTTPS or SSL, you can easily work with that as well, which is quite cool. Another thing that's interesting as well is when we quickly head back to my application, we can see it's serving on 127.0.0.50, etc. So if I get my GET request back, which was this guy here, message hello world, check this out. If you take this, head into Safari, put this in here, we get message hello world. Let me just make that a bit smaller. There you go. There it is, message hello world. However, what you can do, and this is something that FastAPI does for you, if you do /docs, there we go. This is called a Swagger page. Now, if I go back here, notice I did my title and my description. There they are. my fast API, this is my call API, and each of our endpoints gets a nice little thing. So check this out. Click try it out, execute, and we can see here we've got a response body of 200, meaning okay, and we've gotten back hello world, which looks nice. If I go back here and check out my application, we can see it accepting these requests at hello world. We can cancel that, we can move it back up, we can take a look at our post one here, try it out, execute, and there it is. Message I have been posted to, yay. And later on down the line as well, if we do things like authentication, you can pass in like an authentication token here. This can then be verified by the app. So if you put in like an incorrect token here, you won't be able to use the endpoints, which is pretty cool. But this is one of the amazing things about FastAPI. This is straight out the box. I've not had to set up a Swagger page. Admittedly, you can do options later on to modify this. But I mean, check out my code. I've not done anything here related to Swagger. This has just come straight out. It served it for me, and yeah, it's here. It's nice. You can even click on this here and get the raw JSON, which describes your application. In a nutshell, that is the simplest possible introduction I can give to FastAPI and Uvicorn. Let's quickly expand this for a second to reflect on what we've done. We use Poetry to set up our dependencies. We also use Poetry to set up some basic folder structure as well. We've got a folder for our app, a folder for our tests here. We have a simple README, and to be honest, what I'll probably use this for now, if I get rid of this nasty message, is I'll probably just take this and just put this in here to save for the time being for future reference. We made a virtual environment to install Poetry into, and we've looked at how we can use curl to do a GET request, how to do a POST request. We've also looked at Swagger as well. So guys, if you're in the position where you're learning FastAPI from scratch, I do hope this video was really helpful. I'm going to be releasing a lot of these videos in future as a whole series. So if you have more specific or niche things you want to do in FastAPI, feel free to ping us a message or ping us a comment. But anyhow, guys, make sure you keep track on the channel for future videos. Make sure you are subscribed, and I'll see you all in the next video. Cheers.